He built this pizza chain to feed families, but today, he saw it break a man's spirit. Frank Mitchell slammed the pizza box onto the counter. His voice tore through the quiet store. "Tyler, hurry up. You're worthless. If you don't like it here, get out. I don't care." Tyler Carter lowered his head. His hands shook as he reached for the box. He didn't look at Frank. He didn't look at anyone. Outside, Jackson Reeves sat in his car. He watched through the glass window. His grip tightened on the steering wheel. Knuckles turned white. Breath caught in his chest. His eyes burned. A tear blurred Tyler's bent shoulders. This was his store, his people, his responsibility. How did it come to this? In the next few minutes, Jackson would learn a truth no report ever told him. The morning felt heavy. Jackson Reeves lit a candle on the small table by the window. Beside it stood a framed photo of his wife. Her smile, soft and gentle, still calmed his heart. He placed his hand on the frame. "I promised you," he whispered. "I promised to take care of them, to treat them like family, to build a place where they felt safe." His voice cracked. He closed his eyes. Outside the city woke up. Cars moved. People hurried to work. But Jackson stood still, remembering why he built this company. He opened his eyes again. In his chest burned a quiet vow. "I will not fail them. Not today." He took a slow breath and turned away from the photo. He picked up his keys from the kitchen counter. Today he needed to see his stores, not as a boss, but as a man who listened. Tyler Carter wiped sweat from his forehead. His shirt clung to his back. Heat pressed into his skin. He walked up to the counter. Frank Mitchell stood there, arms crossed. Mr. Frank Tyler said softly, "Can I buy a bottle of water before my next delivery?" Frank didn't look up from his phone. His thumb scrolled the screen. His jaw tightened. "No," he snapped. "Go deliver the pizza. Now." Tyler nodded. He didn't argue. He turned away, throat dry and burning. He picked up the pizza bag. His fingers curled around the handle. Behind him, Frank muttered under his breath, "Pathetic." Tyler's chest tightened. He felt small, invisible. Outside, the sun beat down on the parking lot. Tyler stepped into the light. For a moment, he closed his eyes. He just needed a drink of water. But there was no time. Tyler Carter sat in his car. Heat wrapped around him like a heavy blanket. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands. He pressed call. A small voice answered. "Hi, Daddy." His chest tightened. "Hey, sweetie," he said softly. "I'll be home late tonight. Eat dinner first, okay?" There was a pause, then her voice quiet and sad. "Okay, Daddy, love you." "I love you too," he whispered. He ended the call and stared at the steering wheel. His eyes burned. Tears gathered, blurring the dashboard. He wiped them away quickly. There was no time to feel weak. Outside, people laughed as they walked past his car. They carried iced drinks in their hands. They didn't see him. No one did. Tyler took a deep breath. He started the engine. Another delivery waited. He needed this job. His daughter needed him. 5. Jackson Reeves opened the door to his store. A small bell rang above him. No one looked up. He wore an old baseball cap, a plain blue shirt. No one knew he was the owner. The air felt heavy, silent, thick with tension. Emily Brooks wiped down the counter without a smile. Josh Miller stacked boxes, eyes down, lips pressed tight. Frank Mitchell sat behind the register, scrolling his phone. His face showed no warmth, no welcome. Jackson walked to a table near the window. He sat down slowly. He looked around the store. The walls were clean. The ovens glowed hot. But the people inside felt cold. He watched Tyler return from a delivery. Sweat dripped from his hair. Frank didn't even glance at him. Jackson's chest tightened. This was his store. But today it felt like a stranger's place. What else would he see here? 6. Tyler Carter grabbed the pizza box from the oven shelf. Heat rushed against his arms. He turned too quickly. His foot caught on the edge of a mat. He stumbled forward. The box tilted in his hands. A small gasp left his lips. He caught himself before he fell. The pizza stayed inside safe. Frank Mitchell looked up from his phone. His eyes narrowed. "You dropped that," he said coldly, "and it's coming out of your pay." "Got it." Tyler nodded. His heart pounded against his ribs. His face burned hot with shame. He adjusted his grip on the box. His hands shook. Around him, no one spoke. No one met his eyes. Jackson Reeves watched from his table. He felt each word Frank threw like a stone. Tyler straightened his back. He walked toward the door. Outside waited the hot sun. Inside stayed Frank's voice echoing in his chest. 7 Emily Brooks wiped crumbs from the next table. She glanced at Jackson Reeves. Her eyes held a quiet sadness. She leaned closer to him, voice low. "He works so hard," she whispered. "Tyler, he never stops. But Frank treats him like dirt." Jackson looked at her. Lines formed around his mouth. His chest felt tight. Emily shook her head. "It breaks my heart," she said. "His little girl, she's all he talks about. He just wants to take care of her." Jackson nodded slowly. His fingers curled around his coffee cup, warm ceramic against cold skin. Emily straightened. She gave him a small, sad smile. Then she turned away to wipe another table. Jackson watched Tyler load pizzas into his car. Sweat dripped down Tyler's neck. His shoulders bent low under invisible weight. Jackson took a deep breath. What else would he learn today? 8. Jackson Reeves watched Tyler walk out the door. He turned to Emily Brooks. His voice was low. "Does he get overtime pay?" he asked. Emily stopped wiping the table. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she shook her head. "No," she said softly. "Frank cuts his hours on paper, but Tyler still works them. He works more than any of us." Jackson felt something twist in his chest. His hand tightened around his coffee cup. The warmth had gone. It felt cold now. Emily glanced toward the kitchen. She lowered her voice again. "He never complains," she said. "He just keeps going." Jackson nodded once. His eyes stayed on the door where Tyler had left. The store felt darker than before, heavy with truths no report ever showed him. What else had he missed? Tyler Carter walked up the porch steps. The pizza bag felt heavy in his tired arms. He knocked on the door. Footsteps approached. A woman opened it halfway. "Your pizza," Tyler said softly. He forced a small smile. She took the box without looking at him. Her eyes stayed on her phone. "How much?" she asked. $22.50, Tyler replied. She handed him $23. "No change," she said flatly. Tyler nodded. "Thank you. Have a good night." She didn't answer. The door closed in his face. No smile, no tip. He stood there for a moment, staring at the wood grain of the door. He heard laughter inside. Warm light glowed through the window. Tyler turned away. The night air felt colder now. He walked back to his car in silence. Another delivery waited. He couldn't stop. 10. Tyler Carter parked his car behind the store. His hands shook as he turned off the engine. He stepped out into the dark alley. The night air felt sharp against his skin. He walked to the side wall and sat down on the curb. For a moment he just sat there. The pizza bag lay next to him. His shoulders slumped forward. He buried his face in his hands. Tears slipped through his fingers. Silent. Hot. He tried to breathe, but his chest felt tight. He thought about his daughter, her smile, her small hands holding his face when she said, "I love you, Daddy." A sob escaped his throat. Quick. Broken. No one saw him there in the dark. No one heard. He wiped his face with his sleeve. He forced himself to stand. Another delivery waited. He had to keep going. 11. Tyler Carter wiped his face with the back of his hand. He took a deep breath and reached for his phone. It buzzed before he could unlock it. Frank Mitchell's name flashed on the screen. Tyler hesitated, then answered. "Hello." Frank's voice exploded in his ear. "Where are you?" he barked. "You think you're done for the night? Get back here now." Tyler swallowed hard. "Yes, sir, I'm coming. And when you get here," Frank snapped, "you're cleaning the toilets. They're disgusting. I don't want to see your face out front until it's done." The line went dead. Tyler lowered the phone slowly. His hand trembled. He looked up at the dark sky. Stars blinked above him, silent and far away. He picked up the pizza bag and walked to his car. No tears now, just emptiness. Another order, another task, another day. 12. Tyler Carter drove back to the store. Streetlights blurred past his window. His eyes burned from exhaustion. He blinked hard, trying to stay awake. His head dipped forward. For a split second, everything went black. His eyes snapped open. The car swerved right. The tires screeched against the curb. A metal street lamp loomed in front of him. He jerked the wheel left. The car shuddered and stopped inches from the pole. His chest heaved, sweat dripped down his temple. His hands clenched the steering wheel so tight his knuckles turned white. He closed his eyes for a moment. His heart thudded in his ears. He was so tired he couldn't see straight. But he had to keep going. He shifted the car into drive and pulled back onto the road. The toilets waited. Frank waited. There was no rest tonight. 13. Jackson Reeves sat alone at the small corner table. A slice of pizza rested on the paper plate in front of him. He picked it up slowly. He took a bite. Cheese stretched between his hand and his mouth. It tasted the same as always. Hot, savory, comforting. But tonight it felt heavy on his tongue. Each bite turned to ash. He watched Frank bark orders at Emily. He watched Josh carry heavy boxes in silence. He thought about Tyler driving through the night, exhausted, broken. Jackson set the pizza down. He rubbed his temples with tired hands. "How did it come to this?" he whispered. "Where did I go wrong?" He looked around the store. Clean floors, bright lights. But something was missing. The warmth, the respect, the family he had promised to build. And he knew tomorrow had to be different. 14. Josh Miller stacked empty pizza boxes behind the counter. He glanced at Jackson Reeves, then at Frank Mitchell, who was laughing at his phone screen. Josh leaned closer to Jackson. His voice dropped to a whisper. "You know what he does, right?" Josh asked. Jackson shook his head slowly. "What do you mean?" Josh looked down at the boxes in his hands. He sighed. "Frank takes the driver's tips," he said quietly. "Cuts them out of the system, keeps the cash for himself." Jackson felt his chest tighten, his jaw clenched. Josh nodded toward Frank. "He went fishing last weekend, posted all over Facebook. New rod, new gear. That's where their money goes." Jackson stared at Frank. His fingers curled into fists under the table. Josh walked away without another word. Jackson closed his eyes for a moment. A heavy silence filled his chest. Something had to change. And it had to start now. 15. Jackson Reeves stepped outside the store. The night air hit his face cool and sharp. He stood by the glass window, looking in. Inside, Frank Mitchell leaned against the counter, laughing at his phone. Emily Brooks wiped tables in silence. Josh Miller carried boxes to the back room. No one smiled. No one spoke. Jackson's eyes locked onto Frank. His jaw tightened. Heat rose up his neck. He saw Tyler's empty space near the ovens. He thought about Tyler's tired eyes, his shaking hands, his quiet tears in the dark. Jackson clenched his fists. His breath came slow and heavy. His heart pounded hard against his ribs. This was his store, his people, and Frank was breaking them piece by piece. He felt anger burn deep in his chest, hot, steady. Jackson took a slow breath. Tomorrow, he thought everything would change. 16. Tyler Carter walked back into the store. His legs felt heavy with exhaustion. Frank Mitchell spotted him from behind the counter. Without a word, Frank grabbed a dirty rag from the sink. He threw it at Tyler's chest. The wet cloth hit him, leaving a dark stain on his shirt. "Clean the toilets," Frank barked. "Now. They're disgusting. Don't even think about clocking out until it's done." Tyler caught the rag in his hands. He didn't look up. His shoulders dropped a little lower. "Yes, sir," he whispered. Frank turned away, shaking his head with a sneer. Tyler stood there for a moment. He felt the rag drip onto his shoes. The smell rose up sour and sharp. He swallowed hard. His chest ached with tiredness. But he walked to the bathroom without a word. Outside, the night moved on. Inside, time stood still for him. 17. Tyler Carter knelt on the bathroom floor. The smell of bleach and old water filled his nose. He dipped the rag into the bucket. His hand shook as he wrung it out. He pressed the rag against the toilet base, scrubbed hard. The rough ceramic scraped against his knuckles. His hands were dry and cracked. Calluses lined his palms and fingers. Years of lifting boxes. Years of carrying pizzas. But tonight his hands trembled, weak, tired. A tear slipped down his cheek. It fell onto the floor, mixing with the dirty water. He kept scrubbing. A Around him, the small bathroom felt silent and cold. His chest felt tight. His breath came shallow. He closed his eyes for a moment. In his mind, he saw his daughter's face, her smile, her soft hands holding his. He opened his eyes again. There was still work to finish. 18. Jackson Reeves stood near the hallway. He paused outside the bathroom door. Through the small gap, he saw Tyler Carter on his knees. Tyler scrubbed the toilet base, his shoulders hunched forward, his head bowed low. Jackson saw the way Tyler's hand shook. He saw the tears on Tyler's cheek. The rag moved slowly under his tired grip. Jackson felt his own eyes burn. He blinked hard, but the tears came anyway. This was his store, his team, his promise. And yet here was Tyler, alone, exhausted. Cleaning toilets at midnight, Jackson pressed his hand against the wall to steady himself. His chest ached with anger and grief. He wiped his eyes quickly. His jaw tightened. This was not the company he built. This was not the family he promised to protect. Something had to change, and it had to start with him. 19. Tyler Carter walked back to the front counter. His shirt was damp with sweat and bleach. He wiped his hands on his pants, trying to hide the tremble. Frank Mitchell stood near the register. 2 customers waited in line. Frank looked at Tyler with cold eyes. "Look at you," Frank said loudly, his voice cut through the quiet store. "You can't even clean a toilet without looking pathetic." Tyler froze, his face burned hot. He kept his eyes on the floor. Frank scoffed. "Don't just stand there like an idiot," he snapped. "Go load the trash outside before you ruin the store's image even more." The customers glanced at Tyler, then looked away. One woman shook her head in disgust. Tyler's chest tightened. He turned quickly and walked to the back door. Behind him, he heard Frank laugh. Outside, the night felt cold against his skin. Inside, his heart felt colder. 20. Tyler Carter stood behind the store. He leaned against the cold brick wall. His shoulders shook as silent tears fell down his face. He covered his mouth with his hand. His chest ached with each shaky breath. He felt so small, so broken. Inside, Jackson Reeves watched from the window. His eyes followed Tyler's bent frame. His throat tightened. Jackson pulled out his phone. His fingers trembled with anger. He called human resources. His voice was low but firm. "This is Jackson Reeves," he said. "Prepare the termination papers for Frank Mitchell." There was silence on the line, and then a quiet reply. "Yes, Mr. Reeves, right away." Jackson ended the call. He slipped the phone back into his pocket. His eyes stayed on Tyler. He felt a deep sadness in his chest, but under the sadness burned something stronger. Resolve. Today, change would begin. 21. Jackson Reeves took a deep breath. He stood from his table and walked slowly to the front counter. Emily Brooks noticed him first. Her eyes widened. She froze, holding a stack of napkins against her chest. Josh Miller turned from the oven. His mouth dropped open. The pizza paddle in his hand lowered to his side. Frank Mitchell looked up from his phone. He raised an eyebrow at the stranger walking toward him. Jackson stopped in front of the counter. He reached up and removed his old baseball cap. His silver hair fell loose around his lined face. Silence filled the store. Every worker stood still. Even the customers sensed something had shifted. Jackson's eyes swept across his team. Tyler Carter had just walked back in. He paused by the door, breathing hard, eyes red. Jackson held his head high, his eyes calm but burning inside. This was his moment. Everything would change. 22. Frank Mitchell stared at the man in front of him. His eyes narrowed. Confusion crossed his face. Jackson Reeves stood tall and silent. He placed his cap gently on the counter. He didn't smile. He didn't blink. Frank swallowed hard. He glanced at Emily Brooks, then at Josh Miller. They both stood frozen, eyes wide with shock. Frank licked his dry lips. His voice came out small and shaky. Who are you?" he asked. "Why are you here?" Jackson didn't answer. He just looked at Frank, calm, steady. Frank felt his stomach twist. His hands fidgeted with the edge of his apron. Then realization flickered across his eyes. His mouth dropped open slightly. Words stumbled out. You're Mr. Reeves, the owner." Silence filled the store again. All eyes turned to Jackson, waiting for his reply. 23. Jackson Reeves stood silent for a moment, his eyes locked onto Frank Mitchell's face. The store felt frozen. No one moved. No one breathed. Jackson took a small step forward. His voice was calm but carried a deep weight. "I am Jackson Reeves," he said, "the founder of this place." Frank's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. His face turned pale. Emily Brooks covered her mouth with her hand. Josh Miller lowered his head, hiding a small smile of relief. Tyler Carter stood near the door. His tired eyes widened. For the first time that day, hope flickered across his face. Jackson looked around the store, at every worker, at every silent witness. Then his gaze returned to Frank, strong, unblinking. "This store was built to serve people," Jackson said softly, "and that includes my team." 24. Frank Mitchell felt his knees weaken. He grabbed the edge of the counter to steady himself. His face turned pale. All color drained from his cheeks. A thin sheen of sweat formed across his forehead. His hands shook. Small tremors ran through his fingers as they gripped the counter tighter. His eyes darted around the store. Emily Brooks looked away. Josh Miller stood silent eyes on the floor. Tyler Carter watched from the door, his face unreadable. Frank swallowed hard. His throat felt dry like sand. He tried to speak, but his lips only trembled. His chest rose and fell in short, sharp breaths. A cold shiver ran down his spine. He knew at that moment everything was slipping out of his control. Jackson Reeves stood calm in front of him, strong, silent, unmoving. Frank's body shook with fear. He lowered his eyes, unable to hold Jackson's gaze. 25. Jackson Reeves stood tall and calm. His eyes never left Frank Mitchell's shaking frame. He turned his head slightly toward Emily Brooks. His voice was quiet, but carried a weight that filled the room. "Emily," he said, "please call Human Resources. Tell them to finalize Frank's termination papers today." Emily froze for a moment. Then she nodded quickly. Her hands trembled as she reached for her phone. Josh Miller let out a slow breath. His shoulders relaxed just a little. Frank's mouth fell open. His eyes widened in shock. His lips moved, but no words came out. Jackson kept his gaze steady on Frank. He spoke softly, but each word landed heavy. "This ends now," he said. "No more abuse, no more fear." Frank's knees shook under his weight. His hands clutched the counter, desperate to stay standing. Jackson turned back to Emily. "Let me know when HR confirms," he said. 26. Frank Mitchell dropped to his knees. His apron brushed the dirty floor. Tears welled up in his eyes. "Please, Mr. Reeves," he whispered, voice breaking between sobs. "Don't do this. I need this job. I'm sorry, I'll change. Please, give me another chance." His shoulders shook with each ragged breath. Tears streamed down his flushed cheeks. He reached out, grabbing the hem of Jackson's pants. Jackson Reeves looked down at him. His face was calm, cold, unmoving. He slowly pulled his leg away from Frank's grip. His eyes showed no pity. "Stand up," Jackson said quietly. Frank's sobs grew louder. Jackson shook his head once. "No," he said firmly. "Get out." Silence filled the store. Only Frank's broken cries echoed off the walls. Jackson turned away, his face hard as stone. Frank's pleas followed him, but his steps did not falter. 27. Tyler Carter stood frozen near the back door. His tired eyes watched Frank Mitchell leave the store, shoulders slumped in defeat. For a moment, Tyler couldn't move. His chest tightened. Tears welled up, blurring his vision. Emily Brooks rushed to his side. She wrapped her arms around his shoulders. "It's over, Tyler," she whispered. "Frank is gone. You're safe now." Josh Miller walked over. He placed his hand on Tyler's back. Finally, Josh said softly, "No one deserves what he did to you." Tyler tried to speak, but his voice broke. A sob escaped his lips. Tears spilled down his cheeks. His body shook with quiet cries. He covered his face with his hands. Warmth spread through his chest. Not fear, not shame, but relief. Around him, his team stood close. For the first time in a long time, he felt seen. Jackson Reeves watched from afar. A small, sad smile crossed his face. What came next would change everything. 28. Jackson Reeves stepped into the back room. He took off his dress shirt and put on a simple work uniform. A black polo with the company logo rested against his chest. He pulled a cap onto his silver hair. He walked to the prep table. Stacks of pizza boxes waited to be folded. Jackson picked one up and began folding it with steady hands. Each crease was firm and clean. Tyler Carter watched from across the room. His eyes widened with confusion. Jackson finished folding the box. He turned and walked toward Tyler. "Tyler," he said softly. Tyler straightened his back. "Yes, Sir." Jackson placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "From today," he said, "you are the delivery supervisor here." Tyler's mouth fell open, his eyes filled with fresh tears. "But why me?" he whispered. Jackson smiled small and warm. "Because you care," he said. "And that's what makes a true leader." 29. Tyler Carter stepped outside into the cool night air. His hands still trembled. He pulled out his phone and dialed quickly. The line rang once before she answered. "Hey, baby," his wife said softly. "You okay?" Tyler opened his mouth, but no words came. A sob broke through his chest. Tears rolled down his cheeks, hot and fast. "Tyler," she asked, voice filled with worry. He took a shaky breath. I got promoted," he whispered. "Today, Jackson Reeves made me delivery supervisor." For a moment there was silence on the line. Then he heard her quiet cry. "Oh, Tyler, I'm so proud of you," she said. "So proud." He closed his eyes. A small smile broke through his tears. "I can finally give you and Emma a better life," he said softly. His chest felt light. For the first time in years, he felt hope bloom again. Emily Brooks walked toward Jackson Reeves. In her hands was a small pizza box tied with a red ribbon. She stopped in front of him. Her eyes glistened with tears. She held out the box. "This is for you, Mr. Reeves," she said softly. Jackson took it gently. He opened the lid. Inside was a simple pepperoni pizza. On top rested a small white card. He picked up the card and read the handwritten words. "You didn't just change this store," it said. "You changed all our lives." Jackson felt his chest tighten. His eyes burned with quiet tears. He looked up at Emily and gave a small nod. "Thank you," he whispered. Around him, his team stood silent, watching with grateful eyes. Will you be the leader who listens or the one who turns away from injustice? Comment "I believe too" if you choose kindness today.